Today, I'm joined by Lee Pendleton, who was the boss man of the 9-branch London estate agency chain, James Pendleton, who recently sold to Chesterton's. And he's here to talk to me about his story of being an estate agent, growing up, and what he's learned on that lesson. So you, ladies and gentlemen, can learn from it. Thanks for joining me today,
Thanks
Lee.
for having me.
So Lee, what I'd like to do is go back in time when you were being brought up. Whereabouts was home for you?
Norfolk, actually. Yeah, I grew
Whereabouts?
up in just outside Norwich.
Okay, whereabouts?
Yeah, so it's a place called Brook.
Brook. Okay.
And Bungay, which I don't know if you know where that is. That was just in the Norfolk-Suffolk borders. So
You've lost the Norfolk accent, haven't you?
I have. I actually originally from South Wales, so I travelled around a lot when I was younger. And but we ended up sort of in my sort of 8 or 9 years.
Only child, or did you?
No, one brother, and yeah, parents who grew up in Wales themselves and Liverpool.
So do they have a Welsh accent, or is it?
No, there's no accents at all in the family. There's a little bit of Norfolk in some of them, but
so you're the oldest or the youngest?
I'm the youngest. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were growing up in your, before and during primary schools, did you know what you wanted to be?
Funnily enough, I did. I remember specifically going on a German exchange student event when I was young. I think I must have been about 13 or 14. I went to Koblenz, and I remember having a real love of architecture at that time as well. And I kind of knew at that point I wanted to do something in property. I didn't know when, and it was only when I met somebody from running one of the pubs, restaurants I was running, that I met somebody who had their own agency, and that door opened.
When you were in your younger years, what did your mother teach you?
Values. That was a big one, about values, about commitment, about hard work. I think my mum was always a hard worker. She worked for Avon. She was a managing agent for all of the country at one point. So she was working really hard whilst bringing up kids. So I think that work ethic, and my father as well, and they both worked extremely hard. So I think I got a lot of that work commitment from them.
What did your dad teach you apart from work ethic?
Love is a huge one in our family, and I think that overrides everything. And I think if you look at it from a viewpoint of that, it's very easy to say, but very difficult to do. But if you have that within you, as well as strong empathy, then you can look at every issue as an opportunity instead of looking at it as a problem.
Did you have a nice, easygoing childhood?
Yeah, it was not a bad childhood. My parents did unfortunately split up when I was 13, so quite an age for things to happen at that age. But I mean, it's very prevalent now in families that if they're not happy to move on. So I think it had its challenges. But my parents have both been remarried for 30 odd years now plus. So it's, they wanted to make themselves happy, which is great.
Did you learn something from their split up that you used later in your formative years?
I guess I kind of probably, when I was younger, jumped around a few relationships as you do when you're young, and you don't overly want to commit because of the fear of that. And I think that I've seen that a lot with younger people if their parents have moved on. But again, as you get older, you get to realize that it's just part of life. And as a kid, you think you're everything, but actually parents have their own life. And now I've got my own children, you realize that things are very different. So it's just a form of acceptance at some stage.
Did you go and live with your mum or your dad when you got?
I think partly both.
Is that good?
Yeah, it's great. It was really good. I then did move out of home when I was 16 because I was extremely independent thinking, and then got into management when I was 17. So I really had that in my mindset.
So you did no A levels or did
left school at 16. I was going to go on to college, but I kind of had the mindset of I wanted to get into work. I wanted to earn money. That's really what my motivator was then.
Was the money to buy things or just?
It was money to buy things and to travel. I've still got a big travelling bug in. We had that. That's never going to leave. I think a lot of people say, oh, their travelling bug is done. Once you've got that, I travelled a lot when I was young, and I still travel a lot now.
Do you regret not going to university?
No, not in the slightest. The only thing I think I missed from university, which I see a lot, is the network of connections that you get and that strong bond. And I think that was the only thing I would change. And I think that's a really lovely thing. But again, not everyone gets that from college or university. But there's a nice sort of backstory, isn't there?
Yeah, it's quite an expensive if you've got to get yourself into 50, 80, 100 grand's worth of debt for a network, there's better ways to get a network.
And look, I truly believe if you know what you're going to do at university, if you're going to be a doctor or you have a profession or an architect or whatever, I truly believe that's great. If you go there not knowing what you're going to do, it can possibly be a waste. But it's horses for courses. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs haven't been to university, a lot have. I've looked at the numbers, and a lot less have been to university. So it's up to that individual at that particular time, isn't it? But a lot of people, I guess, when they're 16, have got no idea what they want to do.
Well, I'm 53 and I still don't know what I want to do. It's interesting you use the word entrepreneur, and we're going to, later in this chat, we're going to be talking about the fact that you opened up your own business really early with hardly any estate agency experience. But we'll come to that in a second. You said at 17 you went into management. I mean, that's really young for.
Yes, really young.
What line of business? This wasn't property.
In the catering industry. So okay. I went for a job in Essex. Actually, I was kind of sort of jumping around jobs in Norfolk. Went for a job in Essex for a sort of management role, which I had no experience in whatsoever.
But it doesn't seem to worry most of the corporates.
No, it definitely doesn't. Exactly. And but I got the job as a general assistant, really, on a management fast track path, which I really like the sound of, and I think it really gave me a knowledge.
This is in catering.
In catering, yeah. So running sort of bars and restaurants. There's a big restaurant chain, and it was an eye opener for me. It was a live-in position, so I moved from Norfolk to Essex, and got myself onto that management mentality.
Can you remember the biggest mistake you made early on in, motivating, leading teams that stuck with you ever since? You think,
yeah,
I learned my lesson there.
It's a true one, is not really understanding that everyone has a different map of the world. I think that's one of the biggest things that I understood, is that as a manager, you always think that what you're saying that people are listening to, then 9 times out of 10 they're not. And it's to really understand that every human being is so unique and so very, very different. You have to try and resonate with each and every single one of them. So for my story, I think less was more when you're talking to people.
So you've got to find out what that story is, haven't you? So you can resonate with it, because it's your job as the manager, leader, to know what that story is, so you can resonate with them. Like a tuning fork, isn't it?
Well, the thing is that so many managers or people in senior positions, they love to talk, but they don't love to listen. And that's the real key element, is listening, and not just listening, but really hearing what people have got to say to understand where they're coming from and where they want to be.
How did you learn that?
Time. Just time with it, and employing
because there's lots of people out there
people
that reckon they're learning, but they're not.
But again, if you remove the ego from everything, and we've had this conversation before, our industry is run a lot on that, and I think that's certainly people at every level of the business, even owners of businesses. But we ran James Pendleton without an ego and without politics as much as possible.
Lee, you very much are a vivacious person. How do you balance the forward go-getter with still having humility? Because on the facade, as I've got, when I originally spoke with you many years ago, I thought, so here's another cocky fucking London estate agent. Because you are very self-confident, but only through getting to know you have I realised that is not cockiness, that's just inherent confidence.
Sure.
And there is, I know this humility is in there. How did you learn that?
I think a lot of reading was my turning point. I think when I got divorced in 2010, that kind of area, I spent a lot of time in self-reflection, I think, looking at myself.
Were you cockier?
More than likely. Yeah, more than likely. I think I was probably very arrogant in my younger years. I probably thought I knew too much. Like everyone when they're starting out young. And I think you have to learn. There's no way in the world I started out with this kind of calm process and calm thoughts. So yeah, without a doubt, you have to, I guess, go through some disasters within your life to have some turning points. And that's probably potentially one of them that made me realize actually to self-reflect.
And you learnt that through
the recession that we went to, which was very, very hard hitting. Obviously the split of a marriage, which again, another concerning point. But
did they happen almost at the same time?
Fairly similar times, yeah. And again, I think like anything, it's you take lessons from that and you move forward in different directions. For me, getting into reading and having lessons with myself was very important.
Did you have any form of external coaching, or was it just a case of picking
No,
books up and actually go?
absolutely. I think the first book I picked up was a guy called Robin Sharma. I don't know if you've ever come across him, but he's a fantastic novelist, and if you ever get a chance to read his book, I highly recommend it. But it's almost like, you know, life lessons, what people go through. So yeah, very interesting reading. Has been a favorite author of mine for many years.
Can you remember that epiphany moment where the light bulb went ding? Oh shit!
I don't think I ever had that.
Or did it just through osmosis slowly change?
I think it was. I think it was a point in time where I had to learn to grow up and you know, and stand up in a way that's very different from I did before. I think when you're running a business early days, you're just trying to get as much business as possible. You're not looking at the future. You're not looking at the detail. You're not looking at the structural plan. You certainly probably don't have a 5-year, you know, strategy as you should have. You're just running it day to day. And I think, you know, a lot of what I've learned moving forward is having that structured plan and staying in tune with that instead of going, oh, what's happening today?
Do you think estate agents in particular are not very good at planning? They're very much blinkered with, you know, they can't see beyond their pipeline.
100%. I mean, now I have the business consultancy with Pendleton London is my next journey business that is looking to help businesses that are wanting to either grow to exit or grow for profitability. And the businesses that I've spoken to the last number of years, most of them don't have a plan. They have a target for the year, of course they do, but you know, some don't. Some don't track it, monitor and measure it. We became attention assassins when it came to numbers, figures, looking at the daily program of it, but also understanding the fluctuations within the market as well. And even if you look at the last 2 or 3 years, the market took an absolute hiding. No fault of the agency themselves or the business. It was the outside environment. So you had to pivot in a way for profitability as much as you could. There was a lot of, you know, businesses that probably went to the wall in that situation. But again, we'd been through a lot of that within the last recession, so we were kind of gearing up and ready for it. And also we had our structured plan of where we were going.
Okay, we'll come to that in a second. Let's go back. So you were running restaurants, you were running people. How can a chap that can run a restaurant and a pub all of a sudden want to be an estate agent? I remember you said you were looking at the architecture. So when did you find the moment?
I was always looking to get into property because I knew that the catering would kill me. I knew it. At some point it would kill me. There's so many hours, there's so much, you give all of your life in that industry. And
is it a way of life?
It is your life. It's not a way of life. It consumes you. And when I was in my sort of mid-20s, I knew there's no way I wanted to do this for a long term. I knew I wanted to get into property. I just wasn't sure of which way I wanted to go. Funny enough, a guy who owned an agency in Norfolk, in Norwich, lived in the village where I ran a pub and a restaurant. And he came in and we got chatting, and it led me to go and work for him. And I started right at the bottom. I remember my first paycheck being £640 in the month. And my mortgage, I had a mortgage at that time because I bought my first property at 17, was more than that. And I knew it was going to be a struggle for the first couple of years, but I stuck at it. And within 18 months, I was senior valuer for his whole company. And I knew I wanted to be committed to what I was doing.
What did you love about a estate agency in those first few months?
I loved the freedom it gave you. I didn't like the being in a rigid office environment day in, day out. I did that a little bit before I got into agency in office work and tried that and absolutely despised it. I liked the ability to almost be self-employed within a business. What you put into it is what you got out of it. A commission-based business is really exactly that. It becomes your business. And this is what we'll talk about, is people being brands within a brand. And that's what a lot of people don't actually get and understand, is what, if you're putting all in, you should be getting all out. You know, I drive past lots of agents and I can't stop looking in them. You know, I am still passionate about it. And the amount of times if I'm driving or walking past, I see...
We're on holiday, you look at the paper, you look in the window, don't you?
Absolutely. It's a no-brainer. But the amount of times I see it, and I look inside the office, I don't just look at the window, the amount of times that I see individuals either on Instagram or Facebook inside an office, And I think you're wasting your own time. You know, you're not only wasting the owner's time or the people who own the business, you're wasting your own time. You're not fully focused and fully engaged in that environment. Now, that 5 minutes you're spending on Facebook or Instagram, you could have made 3 phone calls to people, booked a viewing, had some commission coming in. People miss the point of what they're doing on a day-by-day basis, and they waste their time on things that actually mean nothing.
What was the biggest mistake you made in those first couple of years?
In agency, when I first set up, I think trusting the original business partner I had was a big mistake. I thought we were going into this thing in the same format, but again, I changed that very quickly. I think setting up, when Lucy and I set up, who was my business partner and obviously my wife at the time.
Okay, we're getting slightly ahead of ourselves here because you set up your own estate agency.
Sure.
What about when you were an employee?
When I was an employee, okay, so I'll never forget a moment in time. I used to work for a very big corporate. And
so you moved from this independent to a corporate?
Correct. So I went from independent in Norfolk to corporate in London. So, yeah.
So you were a senior valuer in Norfolk.
Correct.
You would have been, what age did you leave?
Would have been 24, 25, something like that.
Okay, so you've done a few years in a estate agency.
Yes.
You're senior valuer.
Correct.
Can you remember your first valuation?
I remember nearly all of them.
Fantastic. We always remember our first, don't we? What drove you to the bright lights of London?
The money, without a doubt. Okay, there's no.
What year was this again?
This was 98.
98. So the market.
97, 98.
So the market hadn't started to take off yet. It was still a stodgy market.
It was, but it was still a very affordable market as well, if you look at it from that point of view. So I moved from some phenomenal areas in Norfolk and Suffolk, where I was valuing some extremely beautiful homes, to quite a culture shock of moving to Tooting. So I moved to Streatham, and then Tooting, I got a job with a corporate there. Very, very different environment, very different style property, even to the point of when the first couple of days I was in the office, they said, we're going to go and see a masonette. And I was like, oh, what's a masonette? Because we didn't sell masonettes. So very few leasehold properties in those areas. It was mainly freehold houses. So it was a big, big culture shock, but it was something, and I also took a huge salary cut as well. So I remember my basic salary being £10,000 a year plus 10% commission. And I think for living in London, that's not really an affordable salary, even back then.
Selling a Norfolk home, or
no, I kept that and rented it out. But with a view, I was never going back. It was never going to happen. But I knew it was all on me. It was all a commission-based job is on you. So coming to your point, what did I remember mostly about that? I remember going on a company trip and winning a company trip. I ran it twice while I was there in my period of time. And on the second time I was there, I actually said to the owner of the business, why have I never seen you in my office? And I'll never forget his words. He said, well, I'm really busy. I'm super busy. I said, but you live less than 2 miles from the office, and we've won this company trip. I said, in 2 years, I've never seen you in this office. And it resonated with me so much that, did they care enough?
This was an independent agent.
There's a corporate.
Corporate.
Well, they call themselves independent, but they're a corporate. They're big enough to be a corporate, 60 offices.
But the owner lived there.
They only lived close by. Yeah, close by. It was always my question, and I always wondered, why wouldn't you spend time with people, promoting them, guiding them, giving them even a thank you?
Just an even raw visit.
Even a pop in and say, looking forward to seeing you on a company trip, or that elevates people beyond belief. And I'll never forget that moment. He said I was too busy. And I thought to myself, well, I'm too busy making money for you then, so this is not the right outfit for me. So I never wanted to be in that mentality of everyone that actually put their effort in is spend some time with them and try to help and nurture them in the best way they can, because we were all a part of a team. Although there is always going to be the employee boss divide, and you're not going to get everyone into gel. That's natural. To be visually seen is very important. That I felt when we were running James Pendleton.
This is the time where you met your future wife, Lucy?
Yeah, I met her before we set up. I met her up when I had the first business with an ex-business partner. She was in agency already, and we met up. And when we opened the second office from the original company, we then spurred off and obviously parted from that original business partner.
So, can you remember the day where you thought to yourself, I'm going to do this for myself? Obviously with the business partner.
I remember it being when I was in Norfolk. I said, I'm going to go to London because that's where I need an agency. I don't need it in Norfolk because I don't think the fee structure is strong enough. I think I would outgrow that area very, very quickly, but I needed to understand the London market before I did it. So I needed to educate myself for 2 years to making sure I really understood the market, and then wanted to find a site to
So
do
the
it.
plan was always to start.
Always.
And why did you start with a business partner?
I guess the chap I started with, he was working for the same company, although a different office, and we got on very well initially. We gelled really well, and we thought actually we can make a go of it. We started. I borrowed some money off the house I had in Norfolk to start the business. Then we got a loan from HSBC, and which we paid back within the first year. Funnily enough, we worked very hard to do that.
Knowing what you know now, do you think the self-employed model, because I've come to the conclusion that a lot of people are joining self-employed estate agents, are probably, a lot of them might have actually set up their own business like you did.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you might have gone down that self-employed route at that time, using an umbrella broker model?
Yeah, obviously it wasn't available then. I think it can work really well. I think it's a real sort of hot topic, isn't it, at the moment, about can it work, can't it work? Now, it's the same as being employed in an agency. It's the same situation.
It's the person.
It's the individual. So they're not all going to make it. I think a lot less will make it because there isn't that safety blanket of a monthly salary, holiday, sick pay, all the benefits of being an employee, which is phenomenal if you're working for a business. And also being self-employed can be lonely. It can be quite a soulless job. And I know there's some models that work very well. There are some mass failures, as we know. I'm not sure if anyone's got it 100% right yet, but it heavily relies on how good you are as an individual. If you want to work at the self-employed model because you want more time off, then you need to go and get another job somewhere else, because you'll be working, if you're going to be good at it,
You're working twice as
you're
much.
going to be committed. I mean, when I set up James Pendleton, I was working 7 days a week. I remember once getting turned down for life insurance from HSBC because I did too many hours, because I was honest about how many hours I did, and they turned me down because I was all in. I was absolutely all in. Until the day I sold it, I was all in.
So you parted ways with your previous business partner, and Lucy, your wife at the time. Are you married by this time?
We were married a couple of years after we set up JP.
Okay, and this was 2003, 2004. The market was on fire in London.
It was.
Let's get to the recession.
Yeah.
It really hit London hard.
Very hard. We were exposed quite significantly. We were exposed from the agency side. We had shares in a restaurant with a friend of ours. Every business took a hit. I think property took one of the biggest hits. So I remember at one point we had sort of £600,000-700,000 pipeline pre-recession. Within the space of 4 months, it was 50,000 as a pipeline. So the business was.
And how much were the wages and everything?
Well, the overheads I think at that time were like 250, 300 a month, that kind of area. So we were going to get a real problem. We were heading into a real storm. We kind of spoke to a lot of people and said, look, obviously we no idea how long this lasts. We knew it would only be a period of time. It was how long would that period be? Would it be 6 months? Would it be 12? Would it be 2 years? If it had gone any longer, then the business would have struggled. We had a lettings business, and we had a strong lettings business, which is great. So it helped us. Not only that, for 2 years we didn't take any salaries. We sold everything we owned. Everything we bought over our last number of years, we sold it to keep the business, because we knew we had a great business and a brand that we could elevate.
Did you have to make anyone redundant?
Nope, not one person. So we did all our education on if that was going to happen, but by natural progression of obviously business not happening, people left slowly but surely. One thing that we were always a bit frightened of doing, because it affects the culture of the business very dramatically, but fortunately we didn't have to do that.
Do you think your colleagues knew what you went through and what you had to fall on your sword with to enable them to keep their jobs?
No, I don't think they did, and I don't think they cared either. They understood the mechanic. There was some moments in the future that we would tell the people what it cost to run the business, and they would be absolutely shocked. At the highest point, it was £600,000 a month, before you did anything. So that was the running cost. Even when you tell people, it might register. Does it care? No, because it doesn't bother them. As long as they get paid, I understand that. But I think even if you told people, oh, we didn't take a salary for 2 years, they will say, well, it's your business, it's down to you. I don't think people really understood how challenging, how tough that was.
A lot of bosses complain that they want their staff to care, but by the sounds of it, you have a mature outlook that they, it's not their baby, so they're not going to care, are they?
Absolutely. Obviously, we wanted everyone to care, 100%. That's what we wanted, but it was up to them. If they didn't care, we were not going to cry about it. We understood, like I said before, everyone's got a different map of the world. For me, it was about, if you enjoy this business, enjoy the role, and you have some fun with it, and you can, and the byproduct of that is you can make money out of it, then fantastic.
You said earlier in the chat that this is the sort of time where you and Lucy unfortunately parted ways. So you had the recession, the business was going tits up, excuse my French technical term, and your marriage was breaking up as well. If you think about it, you have 3 pillars of life, and 2 of those have been kicked up from underneath you.
Very challenging.
How did you cope? I know you said you read some books, but I mean...
Yeah, I mean, it's not just read some books. I mean, I've spent the rest of my life from probably that moment reading heavily and just trying to understand myself as well as other people as much as possible. But I think we both went through a real turbulent time with it, but we were very professional.
Still in the business, weren't they?
Absolutely. We're very professional to go, right, this is our private life, this is our business life, and let's not cross the two together.
How do you stop crossing the streams? You might be shouting at each other and effing and blinding.
With great difficulty, Chris, with great difficulty, but with one common goal of, this is the project that we need to focus on. This is the thing that most couples could have just said, well, let's close it down, let's walk away from it, let's be done with it, and let's do our own thing. I think, Lucy is an extremely astute individual, and she knows exactly how to get things done within agency. She was a brilliant agent, and she was brilliant at running people, and she really enjoyed the business. She really did, and she spent many, many years in it. And I think we both wanted probably that more so than anything else. Wanted the business to succeed, and although everyone's got their own responsibilities in a breakdown, we just got on with it.
You're an alpha male. Was she an alpha woman as well? Do you think it was always going to be a case of, 2 alphas together is always going to be hard work?
I guess so, yeah, I suppose so. We're very, very similar. We're almost like brother and sister now, and she's...
Because it's funny, I thought she was your sister.
Yeah, and everyone thinks that. Everyone's got, so many people say so many different things. They think James is my dad who owned the business. There's so many different rumours. But Lucy and I started James Pendleton as equal partners, and we sold it as equal partners. So we've been through a hell of a journey together, and a phenomenal one. Lucy's a godmother to both my children. We have an amazing relationship together. And she's an incredible individual at agency. She really is, and whatever she does next, and she'll be incredible at that. But yeah, it's a journey. There's definitely a book in it at some point of writing about how to, because a lot of people start a business with their partners, and how to get through the turbulent times.
We're past the recession. The property market's on fire in London in 2011. It took off a lot sooner than the rest of the UK. How was the teens for you? Good times? Multiple branches?
Again, a lot. There was a lot of catching up to be done. There was a lot of overhang from the recession. Although the good times came back, there was still a huge overhang that you had to get over. And also the responsibility of, thinking about what's happening in the future.
Hindsight's a beautiful thing. What would have you done differently with what you know now with regard to dealing with a recession?
Exposure is one. It's huge exposure. That's again, but you can't plan for recessions. You could structure, and unless you have a massive war chest of money, which will run out very, very quickly in a recession, there's no doubt about that. That's the only way, the way that you can plan something, is to say, right, we're going to put this money here, and we're going to do that. But as you know, with agency and running any business, it fluctuates. You have to, if you've got a lot of money in the bank, you have to use that at some point if the market takes a little bit of a dive in a quarter. Because funny enough, that I always got asked when we were fundraising for the business, is okay, we want to see 3 years accounts. And I'd always laugh and say, it's pointless, because they look like a roller coaster. Our business is not generating, having 3 solid years. It just doesn't work like that. especially in the sales environment. Letting's a very different animal altogether. But when you run a sales and lettings business together and you combine them, you have a turbulent business.
So things are going well. Are you growing branches at this point?
Yeah, we're growing branches. Even in the recession, we opened 2 offices because we did such a good deal on the rent. So we still had our growth strategy in place. Open a branch between 1 year and 18 months. That's how our rollout was set up.
And I know in a separate video where we do the topics, we're going to be talking about the top tips for running and growing a multi-branch operation.
Sure.
Let's move the clock forward now to more recent times. Was the plan always to sell the business?
The plan, I think, post-recession was the thing we were thinking about. Okay, so how long do we want this business for? Also,
how old are you now, if you don't mind me
50,
asking?
just turned 50. So what's the value of the business as well? And where is the value within the business? And the sales business, we were tracking lots of businesses that were being sold over the years, always looking at the numbers. And I was looking at the mechanic, and the mechanic always was ringing true as the lettings business is the value. And then our thought process went from having a 70% sales business, 30% lettings. We wanted to turn that on its head. Okay, we learned a lot from Peter Rawlings and the Marsh and Parsons years. We were tracking those. We learned a lot from Douglas and Gordon. You know, there was certain elements of different agents that we were taking advice from and looking at lots of different things, how they're doing their marketing, how they're running their business. And we knew that it had to be about the lettings business. So we focused all of our energy, or the majority of our energy, trying to build that lettings book, trying to buy other rent rolls. Very easy thing to say, very difficult thing to do, especially when you're in one unique area.
Whereabouts in London were you? Just for
all southwest. So Clapham, Balham, Battersea, Wandsworth. So Wandsworth and Lambeth boroughs as a whole.
Anything with an SW postcode, really?
Correct. Yeah.
So you sold the business. Any top tips for any, apart from growing, which is you're absolutely right, the value is in the lettings book, not in the sales book. Any other top tips for anyone who's thinking of selling or moving forward to be selling in the next few years?
Yeah, they should be talking to me. That's a top tip.
Right.
Okay, and the reason I think they should be talking to me or somebody like me is so they can get match fit. So we started this process, or the sale process, many years ago. And we started it with a growth mindset of saying, right, we're going to grow, we're going to buy portfolios, but at the same time, we're going to run a parallel sell exit strategy that will some point in time line up. So it's getting yourself in that 100% match fit condition before you even start to think, I'm going to sell my business. Because the moment you come to sell, it will probably take a year, if not more, to get yourself ready. Otherwise, what you then do run the risk of, if you do get a price and go into DD, due diligence, you can be absolutely torn apart.
Yeah, because the amount of people where the business is fading off, you need to be on the growth strategy as well. That, you know, so you get top dollar, not only because it's a multiple, but the multiple's higher, isn't it?
Absolutely. But it's just getting, we did a lot of work having internal sort of people come into the business and go through the business with a fine-tooth comb. So they just pick up on anything that we weren't doing right and actually just make some tweaks and turns along the way. So we did that a long time ago to get into that position. We were also of the mindset, if the business didn't sell, we were going through an amazing journey, educational process to grow the business as well, because we knew, Lucy and I knew, if it didn't sell, we'd carry on with it. It's not a problem. It's not as if we hated the business and wanted to get out, or we wanted to retire. We wanted to put ourselves in a position that, is this business at the best it could be? Again, subject to the market. You know, the market, like I said, you know, a little while ago, took a hit for a couple of years, not so long back.
So the future is now you helping estate and letting agents.
Correct, consultancy. But that word is banded around everywhere, isn't it? And you just
why don't you add the word guru in?
I know, I hate, or expert. I hate all those words. But the way that Pendleton London has been set up is to help people with their journey. Is the way, if they're on a growth journey or an exit journey. People don't know they're on an exit journey until they wake up that day and go, I hate this business, I want to sell it. That's not a growth, that exit journey. That's a moment that then actually you're probably going to get less for your business than you ever wanted. Look at startups when they start up, their whole process when they start up is to sell. That's what a startup is. We're going to ramp the business up for 2, 3, 4 years and we're going to sell it. That's their journey they're on. Agency shouldn't be really any different, because you can organically grow a business, that's fine, but that will take you a long time, you know. And we organically grew our business, but a number of years ago we said, right, we have to start buying portfolios. We have to raise the money to do it, or use the money we've got. But there are certain elements of that, doing that process, that you can only learn by doing it. My skill set is I've been through it. I've been absolutely through the mill with the whole process, and it's a really difficult process. It's like selling a house or a flat or a property. If you've never sold one, how could you ever advise somebody on selling one? It's almost impossible, because the emotional turmoil that goes through it, that's what I want to do. I want to help nurture people, put themselves in the strongest position to get the best price.
Lee, thank you for your time today. If someone wants to contact you, I'm assuming through LinkedIn.
Absolutely, through LinkedIn or Pendleton London, they can get in contact there. I have just a holding page. I don't have a flashy website. I don't think there's any necessity for it. What is really important for me is the privacy and the confidentiality of this process, and that's something I was very cautious about. I'm not going to help any businesses that want to go out to the open market and spread themselves everywhere. It's not something I'm interested in doing. It's doing something very professionally, very quietly. But again, even the process of even growing a business, you don't need to tell anybody about it. You don't need to shout it from the rooftops. It has to be done strategically really well, with a structured plan behind it.
Lee, thank you for your time today.
Welcome. Thank you, Chris.